On today's show, here's why Donovan Mitchell might need to miss some time again and why it would be good for him. We'll explain why on today's Locked On Cavs.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnba. That is linkedin.com/lockedonnba to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. I'm Chris Manning. That's Evan Dammarell. We're here Monday, March 18th. Talk about Donovan Mitchell in segment 1, Marcus Morris as a possible playoff guy, maybe, in segment 2. In segment 3, what to watch for this week in Cavs basketball. They have 3 games, Cavs at Pacers Monday, Cavs against the Heat on Wednesday, and the Cavs against the Wolves on Friday. Evan, to start with Donovan Mitchell, the latest, as I talked about after the Rockets game on that episode, people will check that out, is that he says probably not going to play Monday. He has officially been ruled out. We can get into what the injury report says, but he's definitely out. Where are you at with where Mitchell's health is? What do you make of everything we're learning and seeing what's going on?
I'm not necessarily surprised, just because, any type of injury is tricky. I think orthotic injuries, especially in the knee, are especially tricky, and PRP isn't foolproof. There is risks to it, and you have to kind of gauge how your body's feeling. He may have to get another round of shots possibly, but we won't speculate too much on that because it's irresponsible. But it's not a surprise that his knee just maybe isn't at the level he hoped it was. Maybe he felt fresh in that first game, but he's noticing the lack of burst, the lack of just being able to bounce and just kind of rely on his athleticism, which is coupled with that knee. And I'm not necessarily surprised. But it's definitely for the best to be proactive on this and shut it down. And yeah, the injury report stuff is interesting, but just shut this down, let him rest and recover, because he's far more valuable to you in the playoffs when he's closer to 100% than right now to be this kind of slog of a stretch run for the remainder of the regular season when he's at less than 100%, clearly less than 100%.
Yeah, with him, I think it's just you have to let him actually be healthy. And the problem is, I don't think from us from the outside, and really maybe only he and the medical staff know, it's how long this could take. That's kind of the scary part of this to me, Evan, is just is he going to be good by April 1st? Is he going to be good by April 14th? When is he actually going to be okay? When he says after a game that he can't blow by guys, my alarm bells go off in my head, right? And it's on top of all the it's on top of all the other injuries this team has right now with Mobley, with Strus, Dean Wade. There's just this is nervous time, and you can assume, I think, that you would like the Cavs to get healthy at some point. That would obviously be you would just expect time heals some of this and time goes by and they get right, but not knowing when that is just a very weird thing, a weird place for us to be for us in March, less than a month out from the end of the regular season.
Yeah, it is a weird spot to be in. I think it just, creates further uncertainty on what this Cavs team can be. I spoke with Justin Rowan on this, and we kind of both walked away saying injuries have robbed maybe just what our perspective and understanding of what this team could or could not be this season. Just makes it really tricky, and I think this Mitchell one has just been the latest blow on a series of blows, whether it's Max Strus missing so much time now, or Evan Mobley just missing so much time with the ankle and knee, or Garland with the jaw, or just the random aches and pains, or even Jared Allen, who's out at the beginning of the year. This Cavs team has gone through the ringer health-wise, and yeah, you just kind of have to count your blessings, and I think Donovan Mitchell wouldn't selfishly put himself back out there to sacrifice the greater good for the team come playoff time, but I think your question is valid. What does this team look like come April 1st? I think some people think oh, they're going to be a playing team. I'm going to be a little bit more realistic and pragmatic. I think that the 2 seed might be out of reach at this point, just depending on how things go blow for Cleveland. Their schedule does get lighter to finish the year, but that could be a possibility. But like they're gonna have it probably a tougher matchup come playoff time, whether that is only home court in the first round or maybe they are the road team in the first round to start the series. But all that matters now is just getting this team as healthy as possible and just gearing towards the postseason.
The real, I think, like panic moment for me, Evan, I think is I mentioned at the top is the injury report. And I'm going to pull it up now so I'm going to read exactly what it says so I don't get this wrong, because I think it's always important to be very intentional with what we say. It just is, but I want to this is particularly a weird one. So Cavs injury report, this is uploaded by the teams and then it's accessible by the media, so us. Injury report for Cleveland is as follows: Amani Bates, G League 2-way, Ty Jerome obviously out with the ankle, Evan Mobley, left ankle, Isaiah Mobley, 2-way, Pete Nance, 2-way, Max Strus, right knee strain, Dean Wade, doubtful with knee soreness. Donovan Mitchell, out, injury, illness, nasal fracture. When I see not, knee, which he copped to after the game in Houston that he wasn't 100% right, and there's then a nasal fracture. When did that happen? How did that happen? Like, I have lots of questions.
Clearly happened in the recent loss to the Rockets when he got whacked in the face. But yeah, it is an interesting listing just because he has openly admitted like he's probably going to shut it down for his knee. But, just a little insult to injury, I guess, where he may have or probably does. I mean, a team would get penalized for lying about that, but has a nasal fracture that, could just be another irritant for the Cavs. And like I said, insult to injury.
This team is hit. I mean, big picture, Evan. What do you make of just the massive injury stuff, right? Like, what do you just make of where the Cavs are at with this bajillion bit of injuries?
It's been tricky just because Darius Garland has been so inconsistent because he's physically not 100% and also maybe not able to fully shoulder the load, just of what maybe the Cavs or people who observe this team expect. But it's tough. Like I said, it's insult to injury. I think it's just, again, it's hard for me to fully give an instantaneous breakdown of what this Cavs team could or could not be, just because injuries have kind of robbed us of perspective of what does year 3 Evan Mobley look like, or just more so in this case, okay, Donovan Mitchell's in a new high-powered offense. He is clicking very well. The Cavs are finding ways to make it work, but it comes to a screeching halt at the most inopportune moments for them.
Yeah, the fact that they are probably going to go into the playoffs just kind of with us.
Oh, they're
wondering what's
at this point.
Yeah, it's just it is limping. It is beat up. It is everything with this team right now, and I don't know what you can even do with that, right? It's just with Mitchell in particular, it's just you wonder if this is just going to end up being a situation where you don't know how healthy he is going to be at any point this year, right? That's the weirdest part about this.
And that's the tricky part in the injuries. PRP is a bit of a cheat code to help you accelerate the healing process, but it is sometimes a bit of a band-aid, just because it's not as reliable as just actual rest, recovery, and things like that, and waiting out the entire process. But yeah, hopefully he bounces back, and hopefully the facial fracture or nasal fracture isn't as serious as the injury report just makes it seem. But yeah, a bit of a double whammy for Donovan Mitchell, who has been putting this team on his back every single night for the moment he came to Cleveland, and it's kind of crumbling down around them right now. Not trying to be overreactionary, hyperbolic about this, but it is kind of dire right now, just where things stand.
Yeah, it's not great. Would like to see Donovan Mitchell. We'll see what they say about this Monday in Indianapolis. All right, after this, Marcus Morris. Is there a world where he could be a Cavs playoff guy? Is there a world where he could actually be in the rotation come playoff time? We'll talk about that next. Today's episode is brought to you by today's title sponsor, and that is LinkedIn. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for that role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. It gives you access to professionals you can't find anywhere else. LinkedIn does all of that while making the process easy and intuitive. Hiring is easy when you have that many qualified candidates. So easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. LinkedIn is constantly finding ways to make the process easier. They even just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process easier and quicker. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. That is linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, back here, Chris Manning and Evan Dammarell with you on this Monday morning, Monday afternoon, whenever you are tuning in. Evan, Marcus Morris, 10-day deal, reporting, and the check-in seems like it's going to be he could be around longer if things go to plan here. This feels maybe just like an accounting thing to keep the costs like artificially low a little bit. So, Evan, when you think about him and you think about what he is, do you see him as someone that could matter in the playoffs in any way? Do you see him as someone that could actually be a rotation guy for this team down the line?
Yes and no. I think he is good quality depth in just the sense that like he can back up or fill the role of like what a Dean Wade or George Niang gives you. It's certainly not the same. There is certainly the mileage and just age. Like he's from the same draft class as Tristan Thompson, if I remember correctly. So like that, just to put that in perspective, like he's my age when it going out there. But it is funny. Like I chuckled to myself, like in a cynical way. Like the big hang up with Morris with the Clippers and then eventually the Sixers as well was just like he wants playing time, and eventually he gets bought out and like all that. But like at first you look at this Cleveland team when fully healthy, like, oh, he's not going to play. But like given how this team is standing, and according to Shams Charania, like he's going to play Monday for the Cavs against the Pacers. And I would assume the plan going forward, as this team is banged up and pretty much not healthy at most of those spots, like it makes sense. And yeah, could he be a playoff guy? Sure. Why not? There's limitations there, but if he's like your 9th or 10th man, or like if he's comfortable with how things are flowing and just within how Bickerstaff wants to run things, and maybe as this team gets healthier, like maybe you lean on him more than you do Dean Wade or George Niang, just if like Morris has it that night for you. Like it's not a terrible signing. Like I just liked it because the Cavs kind of need that quote unquote enforcer guy outside of Thompson. Just because like, he can maybe give you a little bit more tangible basketball than Thompson can, but don't hate it. And we'll definitely get the full experience when the Cavs play the Pacers on the road Monday night.
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of immediacy, I think it's clearly like he's going to play. They kind of need just another front court body right now. They've been absolutely hammered in that spot of the floor. That's a really tricky part. The playoffs is an interesting question because, like, philosophically, I want to say no because I think there's like reasons guys like this at this point in their careers get bought out and don't stick with teams like Philly and don't stick with the Clippers and were available, right? Like buyout guys ultimately usually like. You know, the Cavs know this from Danny Green last year. Danny Green did not really ultimately provide the Cavs anything. Obviously a little bit older, coming off of injury in a way that Marcus Morris was not. Marcus Morris isn't, let's say. But Morris is available for a reason. We will see if he can actually give them something. What I do think is that there's a world where, let's say they get Miami in round one. I'm gonna look and tell you what the most likely playoff matchup is right now from playoff status. So let's just say they get Miami round one. That's the 3-6. Miami 20, Indiana and the Heat have the two likeliest outcomes of being the 6 seed for what that's worth. Cleveland, the odds-on favorite to be the 3 seed. Pacers and Heat is the most likely to. Knicks most likely the 4 or the 5 at this point. Okay. But if you get Miami, let's say that's your round one, and you tell me there's just like a run of games where Dean Wade looks a little spooked or George Niang doesn't have it, and you just say like we need another option, like I could see the Marcus Morris lever being pulled and you see how that goes. I don't know how much I would trust that, but I would at least say that it's going to be on the there's a reason that this is the way you go instead of signing Amani Bates to a real contract or whomever it might be, right? Like there's a reason you go this way.
You need a guy who can contribute now versus a guy who, like, we saw Bates get like a legitimate run the other night, and it was pretty clear like there's a reason why he needs to draft and marinate at the G League level. It will be an interesting connection. Like you said, like there's a reason why he was available despite being like a 3-4 that is a stretchier, bigger forward. Kind of like the archetype. He fits the archetype like 5-6 years ago, the player the Cavs definitely need, but like that's what you get when you sign guys off the buyout market or to your final roster spot. Like you don't expect them to be immediate contributors. Like I always thought it was a little bit like foolhardy that like everyone thought like, oh, Danny Green's with the Cavs now, like he's gonna be a difference maker. I'm like, he is coming off like serious knee surgery and also like is long at the tooth at this point in his career. Like ditto for Morris, but he could be a positive contributor guy. I think it will be an interesting like relationship and dynamic just because Bickerstaff was around when Morris was a rookie in Houston. He was an assistant on that coaching staff, Bickerstaff was, and that's an interesting way for this relationship to come full circle. But yeah, like if Dean Wade is a little too spooked, that makes sense. Even if like George Niang is like kind of getting like picked apart on defense at times too, like maybe switching to Morris for that makes sense. But also, this is your 15th man that you sign off a buyout. This is a guy who's going to be like a fringe rotation dude when this team is fully healthy. Like he doesn't change or tip the scales anymore in Cleveland's favor, but he could be a guy that gives you some meaningful juice in the limited time you do play him.
I have one other question about him, Evan, but I'm going to ask you a trivia question about the Morris Twins real quick.
Oh,
so
boy.
they went 13th and 14th in the 2011 draft. That is the Tristan Thompson, Kyrie draft, the Enos Freedom draft, all of that. So they go 13-14.
Mm-hmm.
Who went one pick after them, 15th?
Kawhi Leonard.
Do you know who went one pick before them? It's a former Cavalier who played with the Pistons this year and the Knicks. That kind of gives it away.
Alec Burks. I have like a weird fixation on this draft class. It just takes me a second to think about.
There's a lot of dudes, is what I would say. If you look through this Wikipedia page, there's like Norris Cole, 28th overall pick in this. Jimmy Butler went 30th.
Kemba Walker was 8th.
Mm-hmm. Bojan Bogdanovic went in this draft. Chandler
Jan
Parsons
Vesely was in this draft.
Uh-huh.
That's a name the kids probably don't recognize, but everyone thought he was going to be the next big thing, but he ended up being the Darko of that class, and funnily enough, went to the Wizards.
John Diebler went second round of this draft, the Ohio State guy whose brother is now the new head coach or a full-time head coach at the Ohio State University. Jimmer Fredette was in this draft.
Yeah, he went the top 10. SB Nation just did like a really good like deep dive on Jimmer's career, how he's like a Chinese basketball legend, but like, God, what a wild time. Like, yeah, I think about this draft class every so often. I think it's like that was like one of my launching points into like really getting into the Cavs, just because it was like the first like post LeBron year. Like you're recovering, you get the Kyrie pick, which you got from trading Mo Williams to the Clippers and all that other jazz. Like a lot of weird stuff from that draft class, but also just kind of like a full circle moment where Tristan and Marcus are still standing 13 years later.
Pretty wild.
It is. Yeah. And also, if you're the Cleveland Cavaliers, or if you're a college player, if you play in the Big 12 and are a power forward that can hit three-pointers, you very well may have a chance to be a bench player for the Cleveland Cavaliers.
I mean, let me ask you this last thing about Marcus Morris before we move on.
Sure.
How confident are you that this is a better signing than what Danny Green was a year ago?
Considering that he's actually able to play right away, a better signing. I think throwing Danny Green into the fire randomly was really tough just because, like, he admitted it on podcast too, and I kind of agree with it, like, with the power of hindsight, but, like, Danny Green just never looked comfortable. I think at least with Morris, like, he does have the luxury to practice with this team and kind of maybe find his footing, and also he's on a 10-day. If it's not a good fit, it's easier to move on from than Danny Green, who was, like, an outright signing for the Cavs.
Yeah, I tend to think just a little younger, not coming off the major knee injury.
That's the big one. The knee injury is just like, ooh.
Yeah, it's like, are we sure about this? Like, it's tough. All right, after this week in Cavs basketball, what are we looking for? We'll preview it after the break. Today's episode is brought to you by Stitch Fix. With Stitch Fix, you get a stylist who understands your style, size, and budget. They do all the shopping for you. It's the easiest way to upgrade your wardrobe this season. Easily upgrade your wardrobe this year with a professional stylist to help you find new on-trend favorites that will work for you. The stylist will always send the right pieces. The fit will be on point. It's like they have style ESP. I don't know how they do it, but they just get you. And they make it all so easy. Shopping isn't fun a lot of the time. It can take up time in your day when you could be doing other things. And they save you time and effort. Plus, you get outfits that make you look good and feel really good. And if you don't love something, you can just send it back. Shipping, returns, and exchanges are always free. Style that makes you feel good as you look. Get started today at stitchfix.com/lockedon. That is stitchfix.com/lockedon. stitchfix.com/lockedon. All right, last segment here, Locked On Cavs podcast. Chris Manning and Evan Dammarell with you. Evan, what are you looking for this week? Considering all the injuries, considering we don't know what we're really getting into here. What are you looking forward to? What are you watching for?
I am going to be focused on this Indiana game. Sure, they're down Donovan Mitchell. Dean Wade probably won't play. It is relatable the moment he becomes a father that his knees start acting up. That's very much on brand for new dad energy. But also congrats to the Wades. But more so the fact that how do they handle business against Indiana? Justin Rowan, when he was on the show, noted if the Cavs win that game, they do have the hypothetical tiebreaker over Milwaukee in the event both of those teams finish with the same record. It does have importance. And then you look ahead to the Heat game, that's going to be a defensive slugfest. Who will or won't be available. The Heat's injury report is pretty deep too. I have my doubts Kevin Love makes his long-awaited Cleveland return in a Heat uniform this season, so it won't be till next year unless it's the playoffs.
It's saving it for the playoffs is what's going to happen, which is just peak Doom vibes, honestly.
Very theatrical. I respect it. And then you look ahead to Minnesota. The Cavs mollywop the Timberwolves, but there's caveats to that too, of course. But can they repeat success on the road? We shall see. But this is a little bit of a tougher stretch before things get certainly a lot lighter for Cleveland for the remainder of March.
For me, it's about consistency, particularly on the defensive end. If you look at the last several games, you look at the games in March, the offense in general just hasn't been very good. There's one game solidly above kind of league average. That was the game in New Orleans where Mitchell returned. Other than that, there's 2 games about average. There's a bunch of games where they were well below average. That's been the case all of this month and dating back to the end of last month. Defensively, it's a little bit all over the place, right? So you open the month off, you have a good defensive performance against Detroit, and then kind of an one against the Knicks. You have a good one against Boston in that win. You have a one against Atlanta in a game you lost, and it kind of goes back and forth for the most part. Even last week, a great defensive performance, I would say, against New Orleans, a New Orleans team that then would go on to beat the Clippers a couple nights later and look really great in that game. And then you followed up with a dreadful performance against the Houston Rockets, who were much worse than the New Orleans Pelicans. So they have just not put together consistent defensive basketball, it feels like, in weeks at this point. Can they do that this week? And it's a all over the place kind of styles thing here. Obviously, Miami does its own specific thing, whether guys are hurt or not. Indiana likes to play at a fast tempo. They have Halliburton. And then Friday, it's the Wolves, who are not a good offensive team, but have Anthony Edwards, have Gobert, so even if Kata. It's a very weird week in terms of there's not a lot of connective tissue between these 3 teams. So how do they look? Do they perform against one of these types of teams better than the other? I am looking at that and see if there's just anything we can learn. As much as we can learn anything about this team right now, Evan, when Mobley's out, Mitchell's out, Strus is out, Dean Wade's out, and Marcus Morris is probably going to play a lot of minutes in his first 3 games as a Cavalier.
Yeah, he's going to really get that I've not had any playing time bug out of his whatever pretty quickly, just based on how the injury report is shaking out for Cleveland. But also, I think consistency that's the one for the on-court stuff. That's just been the general theme of this Cavs season as well. It has been really hard to put my finger on what this team can or cannot do or accomplish. One, because they don't have the bodies available, but 2, even when they do, or depending on who is or isn't available, they aren't able to consistently bring the performance. That Rockets game, they got humiliated. They got spanked. Friend of the program, Joe Kohler, texted me saying that if Kent loses tonight, this has been the biggest waste of my time for a Saturday. Kent did then proceed to lose to the Zips, who are going to annihilate Creighton in Pittsburgh on Thursday. But neither here nor there. March Madness, baby. But yeah, we will see what this upcoming week holds for the Cavs. Like, looking ahead, the week after this one, it is a lot lighter. Like, they play the Heat, and then they have the Hornets on the second night of the back-to-back. Then they're off for a bit, and then they play the Hornets again on the road, and then they're home against the 76ers, who, like, again, tough matchup, but you do get like a little bit of breathing room at times too. But it is jam-packed. It is a crammed schedule to end the season, and you just kind of have to ride the wave and maybe figure out more of what you got. Like, I guess that's the silver lining is, hey, at least your role players will be a heck of a lot more comfortable come playoff time if you call on their number.
Gotta say, gift from the scheduling gods to get the Charlotte freaking Hornets 3 times over the last month. That's a dub.
And Brooklyn too. But they also have like that really long West Coast road trip to start April. Like, they're in Denver, then Salt Lake, then they're off that the next day, then they're in Salt Lake City, and then Phoenix immediately after that. And then they have 2 LA games on the 6th and the 7th of April. Which will be interesting. And then they come home to play the Grizzlies, the Pacers, and then the Hornets for their home finale.
3:30 Eastern Standard Time, Evan, West Coast games, which means 12:30 local time, Los Angeles basketball games.
Oh, yeah.
That's good. Those are going to be horrendous. Like,
I hope I hope the Cavs travel with a lot of Visine and some Tylenol. If you know, you know.
A lot electrolytes. NBA players like Los Angeles. It's a funny story. Then Grizzlies, Pacers, Hornets end the year is like pretty soft, which is good.
Other than the Pacers, depending on who isn't available for either team.
Yeah, or
like, if Grizzlies and Hornets is a bit of a breather. So
yeah, playoff matchups at least.
Wild stuff.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna end there. I'm Chris Manning. That's Evan Dammarell. This has been Locked On Cavs for Monday, March 18th. We're in the stretch run, folks. Tap in, subscribe, rate, review. 5 stars only, please, if you have not already. We'll talk to you Tuesday after Cavs Pacers, reacting to Marcus Morris and whatever else happens in that basketball game. Hope it's good. Hope it's better use of our time than Cavs Rockets, which was not a good use of anyone's time. We'll talk to you then.